Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's GTA 5 video, we're going to be talking about 10 cars and vehicles that used to be great, but now not so much anymore. So we're going to be diving back into the cars and vehicles that back in the day were ones that you had to own. Whether you wanted to compete in free roam or you wanted to win races, they're just vehicles that you had to have in your inventory, but 7 years later have been replaced with superior models. We'll be discussing all of those in this video today, and you guys can feel free to let us know in the comments down below if you have any other suggestions or cars or vehicles you think should be added or removed from our list. But anyways, let's begin with a vehicle that came out in the import-export update, and that is the Ruiner 2000. That's right. When this vehicle was added, it made headlines everywhere, not only due to its pop culture references, essentially being the Knight Rider vehicle, but it was like the first of its kind. I mean, this car has a ton. It has parachutes, it has lock-on missiles, it has submachine guns. It has some other really cool features as well, like if you lock the car and someone tries to come up to it, it'll actually like electrocute them and shock them on the ground. And you guys can see how expensive this vehicle was. It is pricey. And this is the trade price, $4,320,000. So that was a lot of money. Now, since the import-export update has come out, we have seen a lot of weaponized vehicles. We have seen vehicles that can now fly, and really parachuting is kind of wimpy when you consider that. I would say like the Deluxo has probably been like the key replacement to this car. So that's why it's actually pretty rare if you go in free roam today that you'll see one of these bad boys flying around, really because they are just outclassed by all the other weaponized vehicles that Rockstar added to the game. But anyways, let's move on to our next vehicle today. We are going to stay on Warstock Cash and Carry, and that is the Rhino tank. That's right. Back in the day, your two options for getting the Rhino tank was to either go to the military base and try and steal one, or spend $1.5 million and have it as a Pegasus vehicle. And that was expensive back in the day, $1.5 million, but this was one of the best weaponized vehicle options that you had. And it would cause some serious destruction, especially with the lack of other weaponized vehicles. It was really hard to take out this tank. Well, obviously, that's been in the game since 2013, and 7 years later, there's probably about 50 other weaponized vehicles that can not only take this out, but are more powerful than it. But even if we wanted to stick with tanks alone, vehicles like the Khanjali and the APC are vastly superior than this tank. So that's another reason why, again, you will probably never see a vehicle like this in another free roam session. It's just outclassed in so many different ways. Anyways, moving on, our next vehicle today, you guys are going to think I'm probably picking on the import-export update, but it really was because it was the first DLC to add cars like this, and that is the Rocket Voltic. So again, when this vehicle was added, it made tons of headlines. I mean, it's a supercar with a rocket strapped to the back. We'd never seen anything like that before, and again, pretty pricey. Its trade price is $2,888,000. But since this vehicle has come out, we have had tons of vehicles that have rockets on them, the ability to fly and more. I mean, a direct comparison would probably be the Batmobile, the Vigilante, but you've got the Deluxo, you've got both versions of the Oppressor that I would say is more powerful than the Rocket Voltic and weaponized too. So again, you won't see many of these in public sessions, free roam sessions in general, just because it is supremely outclassed by those newer cars that have been introduced. All right, we're going to take a break and go to the legendary Motorsports site now. And I know you guys might be kind of shocked at this one, but it is the Pegassi Zentorno. Now, I have nothing against the Pegassi Zentorno. I think it's one of the best looking cars in the game. I think it is one of the most affordable and still a pretty good supercar. But this vehicle used to be the top dog. So I'll leave a very useful spreadsheet in the description that outlines all of GTA 5's and Online's vehicle info, lap times, and top speeds. And if you look at the supercar class, essentially 1 through 12 is all DLC cars, like the Emirates, Krieger, S80RR. Well, guess what car is sitting at number 13? The Zentorno. So the Zentorno is the only supercar to also be featured on last generation that still is one of the best in the game. Without the other DLC cars that came after it, this vehicle is still incredibly impressive. However, because we've gotten 7 years of supercars, unfortunately it's been left in the pack a little bit. Vehicles like the Krieger, Imerus, Wagner, Thrax, RE7B are now all faster, have more customization than the Zentorno. So again, at one point in time, this vehicle was insane. Like, if you didn't have a Zentorno, you were missing out. You still see a few in lobbies because of how cool it is, but far significantly less, especially in races now. Jumping back over to the Warstock cash and carry site, I had a hard time deciding between these two import-export vehicles. You could really pick either or because at the time they were kind of special, but now not so much. That is the Technical Aqua and the Blazer Aqua. So the reason I'm including these is because these were the first vehicles that were amphibious. We had never seen anything like that. Now there's a ton of not only amphibious cars like the Stromberg that can go underwater, but the Tula airplane, also the Sea Breeze that has the ability to do that. We also have a couple helicopters in game that are capable of this too. So at the time, these two vehicles, very, very unique. No vehicles could go on water. And even though these vehicles could go on water, I know you're probably saying they were never great in the first place. You're right, but that feature sort of by default made them great. But now there's just so many better options, and you'll never, ever want to use these two vehicles because they are just terrible now. Vehicle number 6 today, the Mobile Operations Center. So when this was added in the gun running update, it was revolutionary. We had never seen anything like this that had a living quarter, could customize and store cars. Well, it was quickly replaced with the Avenger, which is essentially the flying version of it that, in my opinion, is better. And then came the Terabyte, which is basically a smaller, faster, and better featured version of the MOC. So it essentially got replaced twice. And now I never actually use my MOC. I'll always default to the Avenger, or if I need something like upgrading my Oppressor Mark II, I'll go to the Terabyte. Really, the MOC got left behind because other than the missions that you can do for it, there really isn't a ton that makes it all that unique. In fact, you don't even need the back part of the Mobile Operations Center to use the two upgraded big rigs, like the Phantom or the Hauler Custom. And those are really the important parts of the MOC. You don't even really need the back cab to make it all that special. Vehicle number 7 today, we're jumping to sports classics, and that is the Sterling GT. So the Sterling GT was added back in the Ill-Gotten Gains update part 1. So that means it was also on last generation. And same thing, if you look at the spreadsheet in the description, the sports classic class was dominated by the Sterling GT the second it arrived. And there was really no competitor to it until the Cheetah Classic, Turismo Classic, and Rapid GT Classic arrived. However, those didn't come till years later. So this one really was the top dog. Really from 2015 to 2017, if you weren't using a Benefactor Sterling GT in a sports classic race, you were going to be outclassed significantly. Now there are a ton of other options. I mentioned those 3 vehicles, but also the Infernus Classic, the Retinue Mark II, and the Torero, really all competitors there, which really makes no purpose to have a Sterling GT for racing alone. Now, it's a beautiful car. It's awesome to customize and drive around. But as far as you needing it for sports classic races, the answer now is no. The number 8 spot today, the Anis LG RH8. And this is kind of a hard one to put on the list because not only is the vehicle awesome, it's also free. But this, for the longest time, was the king of the sports class. So again, take a look at the spreadsheet in the description. You'll find that the first 8 vehicles in that class, like the Itali GTO, Morgan, Pariah, Nero, Comet SR, etc., are all DLC cars that have come out recently. However, the 9th fastest sports car is the LG RH8, which means essentially without all those DLC vehicles, it's still the king of the class. So it's still very competitive, but in the early years of Grand Theft Auto Online, if you didn't have this car, you were seriously going to be outclassed in sports car races. Now there's a ton of options. There's a couple dominant ones that you can do very well with, but the LG RH8 is now just sort of a relic in the past. A lot of people probably still have it because it's free and you can upgrade a classic version to Benny's. But as far as this sports version, it's one that was like the king for like 3 or 4 years. We'll talk about another one in a little bit. And that other vehicle I'm talking about in the sports class is the Benefactor Feltzer. So just like the RH8, this is one of the 2 vehicles that are only available on last gen that are still within like the top 10 best sports cars. But back in the day, these guys were 1A and 1B. They were so good together. And what's great about the Feltzer, even though it's not free, still really cheap, has amazing customization. But back in the day, this thing was a scorcher. It was so fast. But again, as I mentioned, because we have gotten so many DLC sports cars over the years, has just made it a little bit less competitive. And you really don't ever see the Feltzer really around in free roam much anymore. Again, still a great car, super cheap, fun to customize, great budget vehicle, but not nearly as competitive as it once was. And our final vehicle that we're going to be looking at today is another supercar that was once at the top of the heap, and that is the Turismo R. So the Turismo R was added around the same time as the Zentorno was. And those 2 cars were basically a 1-2 punch combo of supercars that you essentially had to have or you were going to be left in the dust. Like if you weren't racing with a Zentorno or a Turismo R in supercar races, people would look at you and being like, are you trying to lose this? Because why else would you do this? So it was once one of the best vehicles in the game. It just happened to be added around the same time as the Zentorno, so it was kind of overshadowed when it did eventually arrive. But this was a really, really good supercar. I know people have some issues with it because it's not the Turismo from GTA 4, and to a degree, I'd love to see that one added back too. But it was still a really great supercar in its time. Now, still okay, but just outclassed by all the others that have been introduced. But anyways, that right there is 10 cars and vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online that used to be great, but now no longer are anymore. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you think about the vehicles on our list? Which ones would you have added? Which ones would you have taken away? Let me know what you guys are thinking in those comments down below. If you guys did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would, of course, be awesome. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new, or you want to stay up to date on all the latest GTA and Red Dead Redemption videos that I'm doing here on my channel. And be sure to ring that notification bell as well. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't work, and if you ring that bell, you'll always be guaranteed to be notified when new videos arrive. But of course, as always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.